Imagine this. A 58-year-old software engineer has done everything right. He's completely debt-free, earns $175,000 a year, and has built a retirement portfolio worth $3.5 million. Yet he's afraid to retire, not because he made bad financial decisions, but because for the first time in his life, the money would be flowing out instead of coming in. That transition from accumulating wealth to living off it can be one of the biggest psychological hurdles people face. And one question keeps running through his mind: what if it still isn't enough? If you've ever asked yourself that same question, you're in the right place. Today, we're going to break down the real numbers behind whether $3 million is enough to retire comfortably. More importantly, we'll look at what those numbers actually mean for the lifestyle you want to live. First, let's put things into perspective. According to retirement data, the typical American household headed by someone between ages 65 and 74 has around $200,000 saved for retirement. If you've accumulated $3 million, you've saved roughly 15 times more than the median retiree, placing you among the wealthiest few percent of American households. But here's the part that rarely gets discussed. Having enough money and feeling comfortable spending it are two completely different things. That's why we're going to walk through 3 different retirement strategies: a conservative approach, a balanced approach, and a growth-focused approach. You'll see exactly how much income a $3 million portfolio can realistically produce, and why the real question isn't, is $3 million enough? It's enough for what kind of retirement? If you enjoy practical retirement advice backed by real numbers instead of hype or fear, subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who's planning for retirement. Our goal is to make complicated financial decisions feel a lot more manageable. Now, let's get into the math. There are several ways to think about a $3 million retirement portfolio. Let's start with the conservative approach. The well-known 4% rule suggests withdrawing 4% of your portfolio during your first year of retirement, then increasing that amount each year to keep up with inflation. With a $3 million portfolio, that works out to $120,000 during your first year. Now add Social Security. In 2025, the average monthly Social Security retirement benefit is about $1,076, or roughly $24,000 per year. For many married couples, combined benefits can be around $37,000 annually. That brings total retirement income to approximately $154,000 to $107,000 a year, more than many American households earn while they're still working. Now let's look at a more updated perspective. The researcher who originally developed the 4% rule has since revised his findings, suggesting that a withdrawal rate closer to 4.7% may be appropriate for many retirees under today's conditions. Applied to a $3 million portfolio, that's about $141,000 per year. After adding Social Security, total annual income rises to roughly $165,000 to $178,000. Now let's look at the growth-focused strategy. This is where things become especially interesting. Financial personality Dave Ramsey has long argued that retirees who remain invested in diversified growth stock mutual funds can reasonably expect long-term average returns around 10%. If a $3 million portfolio earns 10% in a year, that's approximately $300,000 in investment growth alone. Ramsey's approach is straightforward. Withdraw $200,000 each year for living expenses and leave the remaining $100,000 invested so your portfolio continues growing. Once you add Social Security benefits, that produces total annual retirement income of roughly $224,000 to $237,000. Instead of watching your savings steadily decline, your portfolio continues increasing over time. Based on those assumptions, after withdrawing $200,000 annually for 10 years, your portfolio could still grow to roughly $4 million. After 20 years, it could exceed $5 million. Ramsey often makes the point in his own direct style: unless something goes dramatically wrong, it's remarkably difficult to spend through that kind of wealth over a normal retirement. But what happens when markets disappoint? Even if your investments average just 5% during a weaker period, a $3 million portfolio still generates about $150,000 in annual growth. In other words, the numbers remain surprisingly resilient, even under much less optimistic assumptions. And here's the reality: most people never think about. There's a very good chance you won't spend all of it. Suppose you begin retirement with $3 million to withdraw $200,000 each year, and your investments average 10% over the long run. After the first year, your portfolio would still be worth about $3.1 million. 5 years later, it could be around $3.6 million. After 10 years, roughly $4.2 million. By then, you would have already withdrawn about $2 million to fund your retirement, while your investments continued compounding in the background. That's why Dave Ramsey often asks a simple question: who are you saving all that money for? It's not meant to make you feel guilty. It's meant to give you permission. You spent decades building your wealth. You earned it. But the same disciplined saver mentality that helped you accumulate millions can also make it surprisingly difficult to enjoy the financial freedom you've worked so hard to create. Ultimately, there's a number that's even more important than your net worth. It's your freedom number. The wrong question is, can you retire comfortably with $3 million? The better question is, how much income do you actually need? Start with what you currently spend each year while you're working. Let's say that's $120,000 annually. Now subtract the expenses that typically disappear once you retire. If your mortgage is paid off, maybe that's $24,000 a year. Eliminating commuting, work clothes, and other job-related costs might save another $6,000. And once you're no longer contributing to retirement accounts, that's another $19,500 you no longer need to set aside. Altogether, that's about $50,000 in annual expenses that disappear. Your actual retirement spending need falls to roughly $70,000 per year. Meanwhile, a $3 million portfolio following the traditional 4% rule generates $120,000 annually before you even receive a single dollar from Social Security. That's almost twice as much as you actually need. Where you choose to live also makes a huge difference. An annual retirement income of $150,000 stretches much further in states like Florida or North Carolina than it does in high-cost areas such as California or New York. That's one reason many financial planners use the 70% to 80% guideline. The idea is that most retirees only need about 70% to 80% of the income they earned while working because many major expenses disappear after retirement. If your salary before retirement was $175,000, that suggests you'd likely need somewhere between $122,000 and $140,000 a year to maintain a similar lifestyle. Every scenario we've covered comfortably exceeds that range. Healthcare is another major concern. Many estimates suggest that the average retired couple may spend around $315,000 out of pocket on healthcare throughout retirement. For someone with a $3 million portfolio, those costs are already well within the margin of safety. And once Medicare begins at age 65, a significant portion of healthcare expenses is covered, reducing the financial burden even further. So what's the takeaway? For the overwhelming majority of retirees, $3 million isn't just enough. It's financial abundance, which means the biggest challenge usually isn't your portfolio, it's your mindset. Let me ask you something. Are you already sitting on substantial retirement savings, but still wondering if it's safe to retire? Or are you still working toward your own freedom number? Leave a comment below. Are you still building, or are you simply afraid to make the leap? And if this video has helped make retirement feel a little clearer, hit like, subscribe to Finance Haven, and share it with someone who's planning for the future. Every week, we help turn financial uncertainty into confident decisions. Because once the numbers make sense, a different challenge appears, and it's almost never financial. Dave Ramsey has pointed out something that many financial advisors overlook. People don't struggle because they lack money. They struggle because they lack purpose. As he often says, watching Netflix all day isn't much of a retirement plan. Many people retire with more than enough money, but no clear reason to get out of bed each morning. Financially, they're secure. Emotionally, they're adrift. Think about these two examples. Jim retired from his job as a vice president at age 57 with a $4 million portfolio. 6 months later, he found himself stopping by his old office just to chat. Not because he still worked there. He simply missed having meetings, projects, deadlines, and a sense of direction. His finances were excellent. His purpose had disappeared. Now compare that with Linda. She retired from a successful legal career at age 60 with about $2.8 million invested. Today, she spends about 15 hours each week providing pro bono legal services for domestic violence organizations, mentors younger attorneys, and travels several months every year. She describes retirement as the happiest chapter of her life, not because she has money, because she built a life filled with meaning. That's the difference. Linda knew exactly what she was retiring toward. Jim only knew what he wanted to retire from. Dave Ramsey explains it this way: you still need something meaningful to pour your energy into. You still need a reason to contribute. His advice is practical. If you're an attorney, volunteer your legal expertise for nonprofits. If you're a software engineer, mentor aspiring developers or teach at coding boot camps. If you've spent decades leading businesses, help local organizations or small business owners, not another full-time career. Maybe 10 to 20 hours a week, just enough to stay engaged without feeling tied down. Because the greatest gift a $3 million portfolio provides isn't the ability to do nothing. It's the freedom to spend your time doing what truly matters without worrying about money. You can walk away from work you dislike, take extended trips whenever you want, explore new interests, change directions without financial anxiety. That's what financial freedom really looks like. So before you retire, make sure you've planned not only for your finances, but also for your time. Create a vision for your next chapter before you leave your career behind. Building. The financial plan is relatively straightforward. Building a meaningful life after work takes much more intentional effort. There's another mistake retirees often make. They become too conservative too quickly. Some people move nearly all of their investments into CDs or other low-yield assets, earning just 2% or 3%, while inflation continues running around 3% or more. Over time, that slowly erodes purchasing power. Dave Ramsey takes a different view. He believes retirees should continue investing for growth. A portfolio with roughly 60%, 70% invested in diversified stock mutual funds and the remaining 30% to 40% in bonds has historically offered the potential for long-term average returns around 8% to 10%. That's what makes it possible to withdraw somewhere between $150,000 and $200,000 per year while still giving your portfolio an opportunity to continue growing over time. One of the biggest risks retirees face is experiencing a major market decline during the first few years of retirement. Financial planners call this sequence of returns risk. Fortunately, there's a practical way to manage it. Keep roughly 1 year's worth of living expenses in cash. If the market falls sharply, use your cash reserve, reduce discretionary spending for a while, and give your investments time to recover before resuming normal withdrawals. With a $3 million portfolio, you have tremendous flexibility. And flexibility is one of the most valuable forms of financial security. So let's come back to where we started. That 58-year-old software engineer with $3.5 million who can't stop wondering whether he'll have enough. The answer is yes, more than enough. A $3 million retirement portfolio can realistically produce approximately $144,000 to $157,000 per year using a conservative withdrawal strategy. A more moderate approach increases that to roughly $165,000 to $178,000 annually. A growth-oriented strategy has the potential to generate around $224,000 to $237,000 per year. Every one of those scenarios provides more income than most retirees actually need. The numbers are remarkably strong, but here's the lesson that matters most. Enough isn't determined by your portfolio balance. It's determined by the life you want to live. Figure out what your retirement will actually cost. Subtract the expenses that disappear. Account for the ones that increase. That's your true freedom number. Then ask yourself the question that's even more important than how much money you've saved. What will I do with the freedom I've created? Answer that before you leave your paycheck behind, because building the money is only half the journey. Building a life you'll genuinely enjoy is the part that matters most. The purpose question is the one that requires real thought. And that's the part so many people overlook. The best retirement isn't necessarily the one with the biggest portfolio. It's the one with the greatest sense of purpose. If this video helped you see retirement from a new perspective or gave you the confidence to take the next step, be sure to like the video, subscribe to Finance Haven, and share it with someone who's planning for their future. And let me know in the comments, what's your freedom number? And if money were no longer a concern, how would you choose to spend your time? This is Finance Haven, where financial knowledge becomes confident action, and confident action builds lasting financial freedom.